This is Polyphonic Press. The podcast where two music fans pick a classic album completely at random.
All right, hey, welcome to Polyphonic Press. I'm Jeremy Boyd.
I'm John Van Dyke.
And let's not waste any time. We've got the patented random album generator right in front of us here. So let's hit the button and see what album we're going to be listening to this week. And the album we're going to be listening to is Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill.
Okay, I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah. Well, here's a description of the album. It says, released in 1995, Jagged Little Pill is the breakthrough third album by Canadian singer-songwriter Alanis Morissette and one of the defining records of the 90s, blending confessional songwriting with alternative rock, pop, and a sharp-edged emotional honesty. The album became a cultural earthquake. Morissette channels anger, vulnerability, and self-discovery with a rawness that was almost unheard of in mainstream pop at the time. Produced largely with Glen Ballard, the album pairs jagged, crunchy guitars with conversational lyrics that feel like pages ripped out of a diary. Unfiltered, self-aware, and cathartic. Tracks like You Oughta Know and Right Through You bristle with fury and betrayal, while ironic Hand in My Pocket and You Learn expand the emotional palette to include humor, irony, introspection, and hope. What makes Jagged Little Pill so enduring is both its boldness and its relatability. Morissette gave a voice to complicated, messy emotions, anger, confusion, empowerment, sexual autonomy, and frustration, and did it with hooks strong enough to conquer radio, MTV, and global charts. The album went on to become one of the best-selling records of all time, earned multiple Grammy Awards, and remains a timeless cornerstone of confessional rock songwriting. All right. So this album was released on June 13th, 1995, and the genres are alternative rock and post-grunge, and the label is Maverick and Reprise Records, and produced by Glen Ballard. And this was right in the middle of the the CD era, I suppose. So there are 13 tracks on the album, and so what we'll do is we'll listen to the first 6 and then listen to the back 5. And so the album starts off with the song All I Really Want, and we'll listen until the song Forgiven. So if you're listening along, which we do encourage you to do, if you want to stop after the song Forgiven, and we'll have the halfway discussion. But without further ado, here we go. Here is the first song on the album, All I Really Want. So here we go.
Do I stress you out? My sweater is on backwards and inside out, and you say, how appropriate. I don't want to dissect everything today. I don't mean to pick you apart, you see, but I can't help it. And there I go, jumping before the gunshot has gone off. Slap me with the splintered ruler, and it would knock me to the floor, but I wasn't there already. If only I could hunt the hunter. And all I really want is some patience, a way to calm the angry voice. And all I really want is deliverance. Do I wear you out? You must.
All right, and ending the first half of the album with Forgiven. Yeah, I'm really liking this so far. It's that last song, I was more paying attention to the lyrics, but other songs, the music was really interesting. It's kind of got the best of both in a way. It's it's a full production in some songs, but it's also very sparse in other ones. It's I wouldn't say it's all over the place, but it just kind of has everything sort of wrapped up in it.
Yeah, it's a very dynamic album. Yeah, there's a couple songs there where I wasn't sure her voice is something to get used to if you hadn't heard her before. It's a completely different style, and it's not really a bad thing or anything like that. It's I guess it suits sort of that rock and roll sort of direction that she's going in on this album.
I know a lot of people when they first heard it, they didn't like it because it was so different, and people said it was whiny, and I can see what they're saying, but I don't. It is whiny, but it's not annoyingly whiny. I don't think it is different, but you're right. It does suit the music very well, and it suits the confessional sort of nature of the songs. And I think her voice, her first two albums she was sort of part of on a pop sort of trajectory. And I don't know exactly what happened, but I think some problems with her record label fell through, and she was dropped from her label, and that kind of sparked this inspiration. And she could have very easily have sort of faded into obscurity, and it's like, okay, well, she's just a pop singer that released 2 albums and nobody ever heard from her again. But she took that and said, no, I'm going to start writing my own music, and I'm going to start putting my own thoughts and ideas here. And I think it's really cool that she did that. But at the same time, it's a really risky thing to do too. But I think I know this album was very successful, but I don't hear her chasing success on this. It doesn't seem like she's really trying to fit into any sort of pop music that she was trying to before. It's almost like she was expecting this not to do well in a weird way. And she just said, okay, well, fuck it. I'm just going to do whatever I want to do.
No. And ultimately that's that she hit on the formula that actually produced something worth listening to by doing that. So
yeah. And the production is a little rough in some spots, and it was done very quickly. And I don't think it was done with people who were too experienced in the studio as producers and engineers. One of the examples of that is, I don't know if you noticed it, but in the song Hand in My Pocket, in the first verse of that, there's an edit in her vocals, and you can hear the edit because it's done mid-breath. You can hear the where it cuts off, and she's breathing for the next. I mean, it's very, very, very common to edit a couple takes together, but usually they'll do it pretty seamlessly, so it sounds like one continuous thing. But that was that was actually pointed out to me when I went to school for audio engineering. It was pointed out to me as an example of what not to do, and since then I can't unhear it every time I listen to that song.
I'm broke, but I'm happy. I'm poor, but I'm kind. I'm short, but I'm healthy. Yeah. I'm high, but I'm grounded. I'm sane, but I'm overwhelmed. I'm lost, but
it was done with people that were, it didn't have a very big budget, so they just had to use people like engineers and producers that just didn't have a whole lot of experience. We're just sort of starting out in the industry. And you can hear the mixing is a little rough in some spots, and sometimes her vocals are a little buried, but that's kind of part of the charm of it as well, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's got not quite a do-it-yourself kind of charm to it, but it's got a fresh, new at this kind of thing charm to it.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of remember a couple of weeks ago when we did the PJ Harvey record. It's similar and not as much because those songs, though the way that was mixed really felt more like demos. It's not that rough, but it's sort of like the next level. This is like an indie release where they're just on a shoestring budget, and yeah, the production choices. I don't think any two songs, production wise and sonically, really, no two songs really sound like each other.
No, so far they've been pretty unique. I mean, the hits sort of have a theme to them, but even they are kind of, they're definitely not the same song. They've got this, I mean, they're rock songs, but they've got that sort of like, almost like a hip hop beat behind them, sort of. Which was sort of interesting. They did that a little bit more in the 90s. But it's, it kind of dates the album a little bit, but it's not, up in your face kind of dating.
Yeah, it's definitely the production is definitely of its time in that sense that they're using current, not trends, but like common tropes at the time, I guess, like, things that were just common sounds and instruments and things. It is an interesting juxtaposition to have sort of like a hip hop beat with an acoustic guitar or something. And that is I do like that sound, and it kind of does work here, but it is very 1995 to do something like that. You don't really do that now, and you wouldn't really do that before. So yeah, it does. It definitely, maybe the lyrics are timeless, but some of the production choices are very rooted in the mid 90s. But I did manage to find a few pretty interesting facts about the album. It exploded from a publisher's job into one of the best-selling albums ever and won big at the Grammys. Alanis was paired with producer and co-writer Glen Ballard after her publisher set them up. Their instant chemistry produced the album in a short, intense writing and recording period, and the finished record went on to sell about 33 million copies worldwide and win 5 Grammys, including Album of the Year. What that proves really is, I mean, I know it's kind of an anomaly. It proves that sometimes, I think the same thing happened a few years earlier with Nirvana and Nevermind, but an album that is sort of done on a shoestring budget and not expecting to do well sometimes just resonates with a lot of people for whatever reason.
Yeah, you can polish a turd up until it's like, shining in your face, and it's still not going to resonate. And somebody else can put out something that's, needs a little more work here, but there's just a quality to it that just, resonates with people.
Yeah, and I think this probably was the biggest album of this sort of trend that was happening, and I think we've talked about it quite a bit recently, actually, because of the albums that have come up. But when the whole album came out, and then the PJ Harvey, and I think Liz Phair came out around this time, and there were a lot of women that were not just pop stars, but they were writing really interesting music, and they were, for the first time, seemed to be having their own voice. I think this is probably the biggest album of that. Again, not trend, but this is probably the biggest. So I think that's sort of resonated with a lot of people at the time, and it just hit right at the right time. The next one is the song "You Oughta Know" features high-profile guest players and has multiple official mixes. The furious single "You Oughta Know" includes guest performances by Dave Navarro on guitar and Flea on bass. Multiple mixes of the song exist. The widely known album version is mixed by Chris Fogel, while an alternate Jimmy the Saint blend was used in the original 1995 music video. Those session details explain the raw jam-like feel of the track. And that I did notice that in that song, and I didn't know that played on it, but I did notice the bass part. I did notice that.
No, I noticed that the bass was like, really, I don't know, it had this sound to it that was just, I don't know, the bass playing was really good. I'm trying to find the right word, but good, yes. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Or it kind of surprises me, but doesn't really surprise me that it was Flea.
You to know that I'm happy for you. I wish nothing but the best for you both. I know the version of me. Is she perverted like me? Would she go down on you in a theater? Does she speak eloquently? And would she have your baby? I'm sure she'd make a really excellent mother. 'Cause the love that you gave every day wasn't able to make it enough for you to be open wide. No. And every time you speak her name, does she know how you told me you told me till you died? But you're still alive, and I'm here to remind you of the mess you left when you went away. It's not fair to deny me of the cross I bear that you did to me. You ought to know. You.
But then the next one is the album's chart rise was slow but seismic. It debuted low and climbed to a long run at number 1. Jagged Little Pill initially entered the Billboard 200 at a modest position, number 117, but reached number 1 about 4 months after release and ultimately spent 12 weeks at number 1, becoming one of the defining commercial records of the mid-1990s. That sleeper to phenom trajectory helped it sustain massive sales. I mean, that just doesn't happen. That just doesn't happen. That, it just has this slow sort of burn, and then all of a sudden it just takes off, which is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's true. If usually if something doesn't catch on automatically, it just fizzles out. But I've heard of other, instances where that happens. Sometimes it takes decades. Like we were talking about Big Star, where it just kind of disappeared after a while, but people started to discover it later on. I don't know if it exploded yet, but
well, no, it hasn't. No, I don't think it exploded, but it is one of those things where it's, it just, for some reason, people, like, whatever happens, like, there's no promotion behind it or whatever. And I think, with this album, I think there was some promotion behind it for sure, but I think largely it was just sort of word of mouth. And it's like, sir, you got to hear this amazing album, because debuting at, if your album is debuting at 117, that's really low. I mean, it's the, there's 200 albums on the chart, on the Billboard chart, but 117 it's not great. And so that tells me that initially the record company, well, this was released on a relatively independent label, Maverick Records. I think Maverick is owned by Madonna, actually, but if it's debuting at 117, it's just that just means that the company really doesn't have the budget to promote the record. That's usually what that means. Doesn't necessarily mean they don't believe in the record. It's just we can't spend any money promoting it. And And because that's honestly, that's how records sell. And that's how, you can have the greatest record of all time, but you need promotion for people to hear it and for it to catch on by word of mouth and for it to reach number one 4 months after it's released. Like usually after 4 months, an album will drop off the charts. And for it to reach number one 4 months after its release is, at that time, it's pretty amazing that people just, I really, like I said, I think people just sort of passed it around and said, hey, you gotta check this out.
Yeah, that might happen more often than you realize, but it has to be something that resonates with people. It sounds like they didn't have the budget to actually push it, but they figured, well, this is still good enough. I need to talk to people about it.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool when that happens. And this is interesting. Its cultural afterlife includes a controversial documentary and a Tony-nominated Broadway jukebox musical. The album inspired a 2018 and a 2019 stage adaptation and book by Diablo Cody that opened on Broadway and earned 15 Tony nominations, winning in categories, and it was the subject of a 2021 documentary, Jagged, a film Morissette publicly criticized for how it framed parts of her story. The album's influence keeps getting reinterpreted and debated decades later. That has to be weird, I would think, having, like, this album obviously is very much, she's talking about personal experiences. That would be really weird to have a Broadway musical written about your life, basically.
Yeah. And then come out and criticize it because it's not really, accurate or no. And, I don't blame her for doing that because it doesn't sound like it was like, it doesn't sound like it was like authorized or anything by her.
Yeah, I don't think so because it's, as far as I can see, if she's coming out and criticize, if it is authorized by her, she wouldn't come out and criticize it. So yeah, I think if she's not, it doesn't seem like it was authorized or anything. Like that's what I'm saying. Like it would be really odd to have a Broadway musical written about you that's not authorized, and like she's saying, like this doesn't really tell my story the way I want it to, basically. And yeah, that would be very odd. But and then number 5 is, obviously, the record reshaped mainstream expectations for female voice confessional rock and launched Glen Ballard's modern pop producer profile. Before A Jagged Little Pill, Ballard was a songwriter and producer with a solid resume. The sudden massive success of the album transformed his career and showed major labels there was a huge audience for unapologetic, emotionally raw female songwriting set to alt-rock and pop production. Critics and contemporaries credit the Ballard-Alanis pairing as central to the album's distinctive mix of vulnerability and radio hooks. That's very fair. I know that name, Glen Ballard. I mean, I think he's produced quite a few things since this, so he's had a pretty successful career after this.
Yeah, the name's sort of familiar to me. I can't place his name to exactly what he produced after or before, but I know he's come up.
He's worked with Wilson Phillips, Dave Matthews Band, No Doubt, Goo Goo Dolls, Annie Lennox. So yeah, he's done quite a bit. But anyway, yeah, those are some facts that I found about the album. But I guess we'll get into the second side, and it starts with the song "You Learn." So here we go.
Getting your heart trampled on to anyone. Yeah. Oh. I recommend walking around naked in your living room. Yeah.
All right, and ending the album with "Wake Up." Yeah, I enjoyed this album. It's like like the production is sort of all over the place, although it was a little more consistent in the second half. But yeah, I think the songs are really well written. I mean, the lyrics certainly, and I think it was it's just a well crafted album. Like, it was done really fast with inexperienced people, but it sounds like they're it's not amateur. It's just they're sort of learning together, and it's like I said, that's part of the album's charm.
No, I agree. It's I think even on the slower songs, her voice was even sort of, she seemed to have like fallen into an understanding of what her voice should be doing at that time. I thought the song "Perfect" was a little bit odd, her voice with it. I mean, it was a nice sort of soft sort of song, but her voice was a little bit odd with it. But I didn't get that in the later half of the album at all. Actually, I didn't get it anywhere else in the album at all. So,
yeah, I kind of know what you mean. Like, it's almost like she was, well, for lack of a better term, she's still trying to find her voice in that song. And it's sort of like, it's not bad, but it's just not, it doesn't quite, it's not quite how, like, your voice is an instrument, and everybody's voice is a different instrument. So it's sort of like playing a guitar part when it really should be an organ part kind of thing. It's like, it's all right, and it's there, but it just doesn't quite, fit the song. And so and then finally, I think you got to remember too, I mean, she's trying different things, and, she's, like, her first two albums were like more pop. And if you've ever heard any of that stuff, it's very straight ahead sort of pop stuff. And she's basically singing the way she's told to sing. And with this, it's like, okay, I'm going to find my voice. And she's just trying different things. And okay, the song "Perfect," it's something different, but it's not quite it's not quite my voice yet. And it's sort of like that. This is really a debut album, even though it's, her third official album, is really a debut album in the sense that, like, it's an artist trying to find their sound type of thing.
Well, it's like a completely different project from what she was doing before.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like she, like, and I've heard her stuff that she's done after this album, and yeah, definitely has more confidence in her own voice later on, for sure. But yeah, no, I think the production is really well done. I like that it's doing something different for each song. And a lot of the time you want, an album, you want some cohesiveness with the production, but I think the cohesiveness, the sonic choices, well, first of all, it was done really fast, so they didn't really have time to think about the overall picture of what the album was going to sound like. But I think they were really more focused on one song at a time kind of thing.
Yeah, I think they were too. Which is not actually the worst way to go about it. I mean, that's kind of how they used to go about albums before concept albums, sort of, before a cohesive album, really, sort of. I think it started with, Beatles' Rubber Soul, whereas before that, everything was basically just a collection of hits, or just a collection of songs.
Yeah, and I think with here, there is a cohesiveness, but it's not so much in the production, but it's more in the lyrics and sort of, right? So it's not like...
It's a little bit in the production, but yeah.
A little bit in the production, and, they're not... like, they're not reusing the same sounds for every song just because, well, that's the sound of this album kind of thing, which a lot of albums do. They're more focused on, okay, what's the best sound for this song kind of thing. And so the songs have the album has an overall theme in the lyrics, And that's sort of the through line for it. But they're treating each song individually, but it paints, it's like a mosaic. It's sort of, when you step back, it's sort of, you can see the whole picture. So having said all that, what would be your 3 highlights on the album?
I always kind of like the song Hand in My Pocket. You Learn's a good song. I've always liked that one too. Maybe Head Over Feet. That's a good one too.
Those are good songs too. Yeah. Yeah. I would say Hand in My Pocket. I always really like that song. I also really liked Right Through You and Knock the Doctor. I like that song as well. Yeah. So that, I guess that brings us to the question is, would you listen to this album again?
Oh yeah. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, it's something that, I don't know if I'd always be in the mood to listen to it, but, I can see myself being, if it came on, I could easily see myself getting in the mood, even if I'm not thinking about listening to this album. If I heard a song from it, I would be like, oh yeah, let's, I'll go down and listen to the whole thing. That'd be cool. So I guess we'll end the episode there. Thank you so much for listening if you made it this far. We would love to hear from you. If you want to go to the website, go to polyphonicpress.com and go to the contact page and drop us a line, and we might read your message on one of these episodes. And while you're on the website, you can check out all the previous episodes that we've done. And if you want to help us out, you can go to Patreon. Go to patreon.com/polyphonicpress, and you can get these albums the day before they go, or these episodes the day before they go live. And you can get a shout out during these episodes, and even pick an album for us to review. So lots of cool stuff there. And if this is your first time listening, be sure to follow the show, leave a rating and review wherever you're listening. And I think that just about does it. I'm Jeremy Boyd.
I'm Jonathan Dank.
Take it easy.